Hello and welcome to the FatBoss Guide to the Dragons of Nightmare on Mythic in the Emerald Nightmare.
So this encounter is very similar to his heroic counterpart. All the abilities that you saw in heroic every single week, no matter what dragon was up, is going on in Mythic. The reason for that is that in Mythic, all 4 dragons are up at all times. You have 2 on the ground and 2 in the air. And on top of this, there's a portal mechanic going on. In heroic, you could go inside the portals, but it didn't really do anything. You could get an achievement or some shit. We never went in there. Yeah. Well, Mythic, you're forced to go in there. So that's pretty cool. And we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But like I said, this encounter is pretty much heroic. Every single ability that you have to deal with, you've already dealt with on a weekly basis coming up to this point. But now you have to deal with all of them in one fight and deal with them properly.
So we're just going to run through all of the minor changes that have been added to the fight, because the minor changes do make quite a big difference when you combine them all together, as well as what dragons you're going to be fighting at what time and how their combinations can screw you over if you're not careful. Now on Mythic, the debuff auras the dragons have is now a 60-yard aura rather than a 35-yard aura. Not only does this stop your multi-dotters from being very happy, it also means that you're going to have a lot less space because you're going to have to be really far apart from one another. This means that you're going to be hugging the sides of the walls a little bit, which can make some of the positioning mechanics such as the flowers or the cool defiled spirit roots or the volatile infection, it can make all of those mechanics slightly harder to deal with. Just make sure that you're never taking more than one debuff at any given time and just kind of deal with the smaller space that you're dealt with. It also does make the tank switch slightly harder to do because you have to move that much further. If you can give them a speed increase of some sort, like a pre-shield or whatever, then do, because it can help them out, just make it a little bit cleaner. And just to make it clear, do swap on 7 stacks. On top of this, all dragons now have a tail swipe, so as a melee DPS, or anyone actually, don't stand behind them, you'll be knocked back, you'll take some damage, and considering so much of this fight is to do with positioning, it's gonna suck, so don't stand behind the dragons, they hurt. And of course, aside from these minor changes, as Loz said, you'll be fighting all 4 dragons at once. You'll be fighting always your Sondra, just like you did on Heroic, and then one other dragon. And this will switch at 70% and 40%. So let's go over the dragons and their key abilities so you know what to expect at what health percentages.
So right from the start, you'll have your Sondra and you'll have Emerus on the ground, with Lethon and Terra in the air. Your Sondra will still throw out her flowers, you need to make sure you stood inside them so the ads don't spawn. And she will still apply a route to an 8-yard area, so make sure you're spread out. This way you're going to save healer mana, but more importantly, you're going to save the healer's dispel. Emerus's volatile infection debuff, you just need to make sure that you move out of the raid when you get hit by this. It's as simple as that. Healers just spot heal him up. Now with Terra and Lethon in the air, you'll have to deal with the fear. Again, this can be immuned and dispelled just like in Heroic, but it's not really that beneficial to do so. You should save your immunities for when things are going wrong. And much more significant, and probably the most deadly thing in the entire encounter if you let it get out of hand, is the Shadow Burst ability. This ability on Heroic you probably ignored, you may be dispelled because you saw a debuff and you thought, fuck it, I'll dispel it. On Mythic, you need to be very careful with it. How the mechanic works, just to go over it again because you probably didn't give a shit when you were listening to it in the Heroic guide, is that he'll mark a player and after 6 seconds that player will send out bolts to the 3 nearest players around him, which applies a dot to those targets that deals quite a lot of damage, but importantly it will stack, and it stacks fast. The best way to deal with this ability is simply by dispelling it, of course, but healers aren't always going to be available to dispel it, and as a result these stacks can go up quite high. If you have 2 or more stacks, you're going to be taking a significant amount of damage, and ultimately your healers shouldn't have to heal it. Instead, if you've got priests available, just mass dispel on cooldown. And if you don't have priests available, you need to make sure that you're very good at dealing with the Sondra roots, so only one person ever needs to be dispelled from it. If you have like 5 people get caught by the roots, you're going to have no dispels available for the Shadow Burst dots, and as a result your healers are going to fall behind.
Now at 70%, Emerus will fly up into the air and Terra will land. Terra will still summon copies of himself through Shade of Terror. These ads just need to be picked up by the tank and make sure they're faced away because of their breath, whilst everyone just nukes them down just to get them out the fight as soon as possible. You also need to be careful of the seeping fog that slowly creeps around everywhere. This fog can just be very irritating, and it can be quite deadly if you're caught out by it, especially if you're soaking a flower. The combined ticking damage of the fog with the flower dot as well, with the dot that you're taking from the dragons themselves just from being near them, is enough to kill you if you're not spot healed. So generally speaking, if you need to move out of a flower just for a couple of ticks, just so you're not hit by the seeping fog, it is definitely worth it. Having a couple of ads is absolutely fine. You can just MD them to your tank or just kill them off and multi-dot them. They die pretty quickly. If that's what you need to do to survive, then do it. With Emerus in the air, you just got to make sure that you move out the mushrooms that spawn when the ads die. And of course, you'll still be getting the fear from Terra. Just deal with it. It's more irritating than it is deadly. At 40%, Terra will fly up in the air and then Lethon will land. So luckily you don't have to deal with the Shadow Burst ability anymore. However, there is still a lot for you to deal with. With Lethon, he'll be spawning a bunch of these Shadow Bolts that rain down from the sky from the Gloom ability. This once again is somewhat similar to the Seeping Fog, however it is a little bit less dangerous. Once again, if a large circle spawns around you while you're soaking a flower, you really need to look at your health pool at that point and make a split-second decision. Should I move out the flower to survive, or can I pop some sort of personal cooldown and take the hit whilst making it so there are no adds? There are a lot of adds during this fight, mainly because of the Siphon Spirit ability, so standing in flowers is extra important just to minimize the amount of adds that you do have. When dealing with the unavoidable amount of adds from the Siphon Spirit, you do want to try and stack up underneath your Sondra, because of course it'll be spawning from her side. If you can get everyone stacked up underneath her, then you can make it so you can easily CC them all and AoE them all, and they'll just die very, very quickly. Of course, this isn't always going to work out. Some people need to be standing in flowers, some people need to be spreading with a volatile infection debuff, although really a tick of volatile infection on the raid is probably worth it so you can kill that ad even quicker. Just try and get them grouped up as much as you possibly can and just AoE them down. Do note that if you're on Lethon's side and some people on your Sondra's side have died, the Siphon Spirits will start spawning on your side, which can be very, very scary. All DPS need to switch to any adds that do happen to spawn on his side, and if the adds from your Sondra's side start heading over towards the middle of the room, you want all ranged DPS to be hitting them at that time. Melee DPS can't really follow the Siphon Spirits because they're going to get double stacks and they might refresh their debuff from the other dragon, so ranged DPS really need to be shit hot and just take down these spirits as soon as you possibly can. Now, fortunately, the two guys in the air are probably the kindest in this phase, with Terra doing his Fear and Emeris with the Mushrooms. The Fear in this phase, once again, can maybe be a little bit irritating with the Gloom coming in, and while you're soaking a flower, that might be a little bit irritating. If you can use a cooldown as that overlap happens, then do, but generally speaking, it's nothing too much to worry about. Pretty much all it is for the outside. Once again, it's all to do with communication and just trying to control the chaos that is going on. It might look a little bit overwhelming, but once you understand what the mechanics do and just generally stand out of the bad, stand in flowers and kill adds, it's not really that much of a complicated fight for the majority of the raid, because of course, someone has to go inside and deal with the ad in the portal.
Now, these portals spawn at certain health thresholds. They'll spawn at 90%. This is the east portal, or otherwise known as the top right. At 60% health, it's the west portal, or the bottom left portal. And at 30%, you'll have the north portal, otherwise known as top left. The southern portal or the bottom right portal never spawns. It just sits there. I don't even know what's in there.
No,
Maybe something's in there. Someone go find out. Inside these portals is an ad that simply just starts gaining energy. If he ever reaches 100% energy, he'll explode and kill everyone in your entire raid, whether they're inside the portal or not. So you need to send a group of players in there to go and kill him off. And the best comp to send inside these portals is a healer and 4 DPS. And really you want melee DPS because they have really nice burst, but primarily because you need consistent interrupts. Now, apart from the ad gaining energy while he's inside there, he'll also be doing burst damage to everyone. That's why you send your healer in. But importantly, he'll cast Collapsing Nightmare. This deals damage to anyone within the targeting circle and reduces their damage by 50% for 9 seconds. Make sure that you interrupt this ability so you don't have to move from it, which as a result will increase your damage. And really, we would recommend that you do set up some form of interrupt rotation every single portal, just to make it that much cleaner. And all you need to do while you're inside here is simply just kill him off before he does get to 100% energy, and then just leave the room and go back out and continue with the rest of the encounter. Now, when you're setting up what group of players goes inside what portal, you can use the same players every single time if you like, but do keep in mind that you want to make sure that the amount of DPS on each side of the room is balanced so that they're there to actually deal with the mechanics when they come. As an example, if the Siphon Spirit adds that come and all of those players that are supposed to deal with them just so happen to be inside a portal, well, the ads are going to be on full health when they reach the middle of the room, which means the left side's going to have a gigantic panic and you're going to have to move the dragons around everywhere. So make sure you balance both the left and the right hand side so there's a nice spread of DPS ready to deal with whatever comes. Our guild, however, doesn't use the same players for every single portal. In fact, we use different people every single time, apart from a few people. The reason why we do this is so DPS have to run less. I mean, if the portal spawns on the right, then we send DPS from the right. When the portal spawns on the left, we send the DPS from the left. We do, however, have a rogue and a paladin healer go in every single portal. The reason why we have one healer go in the same portal every single time, you'll always have a nice balance of healers on both sides. There'll always be 2 up to heal the entire raid. And the reason why we send one rogue in every single time is because he can simply just cloak the stacks. And you're probably scratching your head thinking, well, why would you want to cloak your stacks? Well, the problem is that as your timers change on a week by week basis and you're starting to kill the bosses off quicker and quicker, sometimes you can be in the situation where you'll come out of a portal You'll get some stacks, you'll get ready to move over to the next portal, which is on the opposite side of the room. Sometimes the tanks will do a dragon swap at the exact same time, and if that does happen, as you're moving over, you're also going to be still getting the stacks from the same dragon, which as a result means you might get stunned. If you get stunned before you go into portal, you're absolutely fucked. So by having this floating rogue and this floating paladin healer go in every single portal, they can either cloak or they can use bubble and completely reset their stacks, guaranteeing them to get into every single portal without any issues. And while you are inside that portal and you are killing the ad, by the time you come back out, your stacks have dropped anyway. But without going into too much more detail with it, because I'm overcomplicating the groups a little bit, simply send in 4 DPS and 1 healer every single time, go in there, blow up the ad, leave. That's all you need to do with the portals. Very, very simple. Get there early, get in there early, kill the ad early, get the fuck out early so you can continue off with the rest of the encounter.
Once again, this fight is all about organization and trying to control the chaos that they're sending towards you. It isn't really that difficult. The damage requirement isn't particularly high.
There is no damage requirement.
I don't even think there is a damage requirement.
Just don't be shit with heroic mechanics, don't stand in shit, and heal up people.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just, once again, just being clean, just keeping everything clean, making sure everything's dealt with. Don't try and be cheeky with your damage. Just deal with it nice and slowly, and the bosses will fall over. Don't worry, you got a load of time. But thank you very much for watching, guys. If this guide did help you out, then make sure you do slap a like on it. It really does help us out. And before you do go, do check out our sponsor, Discord. Discord is a service where you can make your own server for your friends, your guild, or your random 5-man pug, with voice comms and text channels. And all of this is entirely free, and it's super easy to set up. We have our own community Discord server where we talk about raiding or our videos or just generally chill out with you lot. It's a lot of fun. We're in there quite a lot at the moment answering questions and all that kind of stuff, so do check it out. The link is in the description below. And of course, a big shout out to all of our supporters on Patreon. You guys allow us to keep doing what we do. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.